Hold up, y'all are not ready for this one. Just when we thought Chrissy Lampkin had hung up her scandal heels and Jim Jones was finally catching a break from the drama gods. Boom, Brooke Bailey just came out swinging with tea so hot it could burn the entire Dipset legacy to ash. And trust me, this ain't your average, she said. This is betrayal on a whole new level. And it's got Jim looking like the last to know at his own surprise funeral. So, what did Chrissy do that left the streets shook? Jim speechless, and Brooke Bailey clutching her pearls. Why is Brooke, of all people, breaking her silence no years after staying out of the mess? And how did Chrissy manage to outmaneuver Jim Jones, the same man who once claimed the whole game bowed to him? You better sit down, because what you're about to hear might just flip everything you thought you knew about loyalty, revenge, and the fine art of industry chess moves. We're talking secret alliances, backdoor business deals, and a betrayal so cold Elsa herself would say, "Girl, that's a bit much." Let's unpack the chaos, because baby, it's deeper than drama. It's war. It all started when whispers began to circle the industry, those quiet little murmurs that usually disappear as fast as they come. But this time, they stuck. They grew legs, ran wild, and turned into something much bigger than just a rumor. People started talking, and the name on everyone's lips wasn't Jim Jones. It was Chrissy Lampkin. Now, anyone who knows even a fraction of hip-hop culture understands that Chrissy and Jim have been ride or die for what feels like a century. She's been through it with him, loyal, patient, and let's be honest, waiting way too long for that ring. And while the streets always had opinions about their relationship, no one ever expected Chrissy to be the one to make the kind of move that would leave Jim looking blindsided and betrayed. But here we are. Out of nowhere, Brooke Bailey, silent when it comes to other people's drama, steps into the spotlight like she's been holding on to receipts for years. And when she spoke, she didn't just drop gossip, she dropped a whole scandal. According to Brooke, Chrissy's been playing a quiet game for a long time. One that didn't include Jim. And baby, the moves she's been making. Let's just say they weren't just about love, they were about power, money, and building something that didn't have Jim's name attached to it. The T. Chrissy has allegedly been in talks with major players behind the scenes, building connections, securing meetings, and whispering in ears that carry big influence and even bigger checkbooks. And where was Jim while all this was going on? Standing on stages, still defending their love like it was unshakable. Meanwhile, Chrissy was allegedly building her exit strategy, brick by brick, and not even looking back. Insiders claim she was spotted at high-level networking events in LA, then in Miami, then suddenly in private meetings in Atlanta. And none of it included Jim. The woman who once declared herself his forever had quietly taken herself out of the narrative and placed herself into a much bigger one. Then came the leaks. A few anonymous sources, some blurry screenshots, and a single audio clip that sounded way too real to ignore. Allegedly, Chrissy was heard discussing a major real estate investment deal, a deal projected to be worth 8 figures alongside someone the industry knows all too well, one of Jim Jones' oldest rivals. Yes, the same man Jim once went on record calling a snake. Someone he swore he'd never speak to again, let alone break bread with. And now that man was sitting across from Chrissy at a business table, plotting something big. Now, at first, people tried to brush it off. A couple of vague tweets, a few sideworthy Instagram captions. But then Brooke Bailey doubled down. She didn't just talk, she backed it up. She released a series of voice notes, alleged messages, and a timeline, so detailed it had people staring at their screens with their mouths open. According to Brooke's version of events, Chrissy didn't just randomly stumble into a deal. This had been in the works for over a year. The dinners, the handshakes, the documents, all of it planned. And Jim, completely in the dark. Word on the street is, when he found out, it wasn't from Chrissy. It was from someone in his own circle who'd gotten wind of the deal and thought Jim already knew. And when he confronted Chrissy, the explosion could be heard through the walls. She didn't deny it, she didn't fold, she didn't even blink. She told him straight up, she was done waiting. Done being sidelined. Done letting her name be attached to his shadow. She said she was building something for herself now, bigger than being the girlfriend of a rapper. And Jim, he didn't take it well. Reports say he left the house that night and didn't come back for days. Some say he went to Harlem to regroup. Others say he went straight to his lawyers. What we do know is this: that moment changed everything. Jim's team went into lockdown. His socials went dark. And Chrissy, she stayed quiet, calm, and calculated. But Brooke wasn't done talking. She claimed Chrissy had lined up 3 more deals behind Jim's back. Not 1, not 2, 3. One of them involving a luxury fashion partnership, another, allegedly, a scripted series based on her life with a production company that had previously pitched a docuseries about Chrissy and Jim as a couple. Talk about a plot twist. If true, that meant Chrissy was repackaging the drama of her relationship and turning it into Meanwhile, Jim was scrambling. Insiders said he started reaching out to mutual friends, trying to get answers. Some refused to get involved. Others told him, flat out, Chrissy had been moving different for a while, and he just didn't want to see it. What hurt the most? One of those mutuals was someone Jim trusted with his life. Someone who apparently helped broker one of Chrissy's secret deals. The betrayal ran deeper than anyone could have guessed, and the public. Oh, the public was eating it up? Twitter was on fire. Instagram comment sections flooded with messy speculation, and fans were split. Some were cheering Chrissy on, calling her a queen for finally stepping into her own power. Others dragged her for playing dirty, accusing her of using Jim's name to get ahead, only to cut him out when the money got real. But the real stinger? Someone from Chrissy's team allegedly leaked a pitch deck to a media outlet. And right there, front and center, was a tagline that read, "From behind the man to building the brand." That was all it took. Screenshots went viral, think pieces popped up overnight, and suddenly the narrative had shifted. Chrissy wasn't just a woman scorned, she was a calculated boss who had played the long game and was now cashing in. And as all of this unraveled, Jim's silence grew louder. No statements. No interviews. Not even a shady Instagram story. Just stillness, which for a man as vocal as Jim, spoke volumes. The question now was, how deep did this go? Because if Chrissy really had been planning this for over a year, who else knew? Who helped? Who stayed quiet while Jim kept posting couple goals and talking about forever? And most importantly, what was Chrissy going to do next? Now that the mask had fully come off and the world saw her not just as the girlfriend, but as the mastermind pulling strings in silence all along. And just when people thought the chaos had reached its peak, it got even messier. Because now, it wasn't just about who Chrissy had been working with, it was about what she was planning to do next. The betrayal was already out in the open, but the depth of her strategy was only beginning to unfold. Behind the scenes, whispers started surfacing that Chrissy wasn't just chasing business clout. She was positioning herself as a power player in an entirely new space, according to one alleged insider who's been close to both camps. Chrissy had been quietly assembling a team of financial advisors, media consultants, and entertainment attorneys long before Jim had any clue what was happening. And this wasn't some rushed revenge plan. It was organized, strategic, and chillingly precise. Allegedly, she had mapped out a 3-year rollout, complete with brand partnerships, licensing deals, and a digital content empire. All built under her own name, no Jones attached. No shadow. No permission asked. And the twist? The same investor backing Chrissy's empire was rumored to be someone who had once offered a deal to Jim and been turned down flat. Sources say the investor took it personally, back then. And now, this was his way of settling the score, funding the woman Jim never thought would walk away. But Chrissy didn't just walk away. She walked in with a full-blown army. Private meetings were being held in Beverly Hills boardrooms, NDAs were being signed like candy. And talent agencies that had once only shown interest in Jim were suddenly reaching out to Chrissy. The shift was happening in real time, and Jim, he was stuck trying to piece together a narrative that had already moved on without him. Meanwhile, Brooke Bailey was still dropping breadcrumbs, carefully choosing her words but making it very clear that what the public had seen was just the surface. In an exclusive interview with an underground podcast, Brooke allegedly said, "People keep asking why I spoke up, but y'all don't even know the half of what Chrissy's been sitting on. This wasn't petty. This was war." That quote alone sent fans spiraling, searching for anything they might have missed. And then it happened. Someone leaked a ALLEGED business registration filed months ago, listing Chrissy as CEO of a new lifestyle brand. The kicker, the brand's slogan was a phrase she had once famously said in a love and hip-hop confessional. A line she shared during a fight with Jim. It was personal, sharp, and unmistakable. It was like she had taken every painful moment from their relationship and weaponized it into content and capital. Jim's reaction, according to someone close to him, was explosive. They claimed he threw his phone across the room when he saw the filing. He wasn't just angry, he was stunned. For years, He believed Chrissy had his back, even if things weren't always smooth. He thought the loyalty was mutual. But now, he was realizing that while he was busy defending their love in interviews and on social media, Chrissy was building an escape route in silence. And if that wasn't enough, word started going around that Chrissy had booked a major talk show appearance, one that was notorious for exposing secrets, airing out grievances, and letting guests tell their side of the story unfiltered. People in the industry knew what that meant. She wasn't just planning to launch her brand. She was planning to tell everything. Every argument, every delay, every broken promise. It was all allegedly going to be laid out on national television, and Jim had no way to stop it. His legal team tried. They sent warnings, tried to pull contractual strings, even allegedly made calls to producers. But Chrissy had made sure she owned her side of the narrative, and there was nothing they could legally do to silence her. That's when Jim started fighting back the only way he knew how, through power moves. He reached out to longtime collaborators, tried to lock in new deals, and made a few sudden appearances of his own. One, in particular, raised eyebrows: a cryptic Instagram live where he didn't mention Chrissy by name but said, "Sometimes you give someone your world, and they sell it behind your back." The clip went viral instantly, sparking thousands of comments, speculation, and think pieces. Fans were divided. Some claimed Jim was the real victim, pointing to all the years Chrissy had supposedly benefited from his status. Others argued Chrissy had waited long enough and had every right to carve out her own lane. But as all this was playing out online, something else happened behind closed doors. A sealed court filing surfaced, dated just weeks after the scandal broke. According to a leak, Jim's legal team had initiated a quiet investigation into the shared assets between them. Despite the two never being legally married, it was a preemptive strike, insiders claimed, in case Chrissy's upcoming deals threatened to involve any projects with Jim's name or likeness. That move right there proved something huge. Jim wasn't just hurt. He was preparing for war too, and Chrissy, she didn't flinch. In fact, sources say she doubled down, launching the first phase of her new venture with a surprise drop of a digital campaign. The visuals were clean, modern, and powerful, and in the promo clip, Chrissy stood alone, wearing a sharp suit, staring directly at the camera with one line: "Don't wait for your name to be called. Build your own table." It wasn't just branding, it was a declaration. And for anyone who had ever seen her as just someone's girlfriend, it was a warning. Meanwhile, the streets were buzzing with a new theory. Some believed that Chrissy had anticipated Jim's every move, that she knew he'd try to stop her, slow her down, discredit her. And so, she had layered her deals, diversified her partnerships, and moved the money into channels he couldn't touch. She had allegedly protected herself from the inside out. And if that was true, then Jim was going to lose more than just his relationship. He was going to lose the ability to control the narrative. All of this came to a head during a chance run-in at a music industry event in New York. Eyewitnesses say the tension was thick. Jim showed up unannounced, dressed to kill, but clearly on edge. Chrissy was already there, calm, composed, and surrounded by a small team. The two reportedly locked eyes but didn't speak. No yelling, no public blowout, just silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than words. And in that moment, it was clear to everyone around them this wasn't over. Not even close. Even close. The fallout from that silent confrontation only escalated the storm. While fans replayed blurry videos from the event trying to read body language and speculate about who blinked first. Behind closed doors, both Chrissy and Jim were making moves that proved this wasn't just a messy breakup, it was a full-blown power struggle. Jim wasn't going to just sit back and let Chrissy rise without resistance. Rumors started swirling that he was pulling every favor he had in the industry to block her access to certain deals. Executives who had once been neutral were now being forced to pick sides, and while Chrissy had her own circle of support, Jim had history, clout, and influence that could still shake things up with a single phone call. But Chrissy wasn't fazed. Sources close to her claimed she had already predicted this and had lined up backup investors in case Jim started burning bridges. And here's where it really got messy. Allegedly, Chrissy had kept receipts, years of financial documents, text messages, and voice notes, all detailing moments where Jim may have operated in legal gray areas. The kind of receipts that could cause real damage if exposed. One insider claimed that Chrissy had warned Jim in private, "If you try to shut me down, I'll show the world who you really are." That statement alone was enough to send panic through Jim's camp. Suddenly, lawyers were on overdrive, publicists were scrambling to monitor every headline, and Jim's closest allies were urging him to back down before Chrissy dropped a bomb that couldn't be recovered from. But it was too late. Because just days later, an anonymous source leaked a snippet of what appeared to be a financial breakdown tied to one of Jim's companies. Nothing illegal confirmed, but enough inconsistencies to get people asking questions. Industry blogs ran with it, and within hours, the narrative shifted. Now it wasn't just about Chrissy stepping into her power, it was about Jim trying to stop her while hiding his own dirt. Meanwhile, Chrissy's momentum kept building. Her brand launches were gaining traction, interviews were lining up, and the talk show appearance that had been whispered about was finally confirmed. She was going on national TV, and everyone knew she wasn't holding back. Promos teased dramatic lines like "I stayed loyal until it cost me myself, and you can only be quiet for so long before the truth starts screaming." Jim tried to get ahead of it. He released a short video on his page.com, but clearly wounded, where he said he was disappointed, not just by Chrissy's actions, but by how public it had become. He spoke of betrayal, of people forgetting who was there from the start, and of trying to protect what they built. It was emotional, it was raw, and it won him a wave of sympathy at first. But then came the show. Chrissy sat across from the host, cool and collected, and for the first time, she told her side in full. She didn't drag him through the mud. She didn't scream, she simply laid out facts. How she waited for commitment that never came. How she sacrificed opportunities to support his vision. How she believed in his vision, even when it didn't include her. And how eventually, she realized that believing in herself had to come first. The audience was silent, hanging on to every word. And when the host asked if she still loved Jim, Chrissy paused, looked straight into the camera, and said, "I'll always have love for him, but I love myself more now." That moment was the nail in the coffin. It went viral instantly, clips spreading across social media like wildfire. People weren't just watching, they were picking sides. Some called Chrissy a hero for finally standing up for herself after years of emotional stagnation. Others accused her of using vulnerability to mask ambition. But either way, she had taken control of the story, and Jim was left reacting, not leading. Behind the scenes, the damage control kicked into full gear. Contracts were being reviewed. Endorsement deals were paused. Mutual friends were distancing themselves. And then came the last twist no one saw coming. A former business associate of Jim's came forward anonymously, claiming that some of Chrissy's accusations weren't just emotional, they were factual. This associate alleged that certain deals had indeed been kept off the books, that promises had been made to Chrissy and never fulfilled, and that Jim had always assumed she'd stay quiet. The revelation cracked everything wide open. Suddenly, Chrissy wasn't just seen as the woman who finally snapped, she was seen as the woman who had been wronged for years and finally had enough. Jim's supporters scrambled to hold the line, but cracks were showing. And Chrissy, she kept moving. More brand drops. More appearances. Even talks of a book deal started to surface. She was unstoppable. And now, she wasn't just building a name, she was building an empire. And Jim, who had once been the center of her world, was now just a chapter in her story. Industry insiders began using the phrase the Chrissy effect to describe women who had been sidelined, silenced, or overshadowed in relationships and were now taking control of their narratives. She had unknowingly started a movement, and her name was everywhere. But with power comes enemies. People who had once smiled in her face were now turning cold. Rumors of sabotage attempts, hacked emails, and betrayal from within her own camp started to surface. Chrissy, however, stood firm. She released a statement that simply read, "I didn't come this far twofold. Let them come." And just like that, the war between her and Jim turned into something even bigger, battle over identity, power, and legacy. As the dust continues to settle, one thing is clear. This isn't just a breakup. This isn't just a business rivalry. This is a cultural shift. A woman who waited, supported, and sacrificed, decided enough was enough, and did what most wouldn't dare. She flipped the whole script, wrote her own, and dared the world to read it. And whether people love her or hate her, one thing can't be denied. Chrissy Lampkin is no longer the woman behind the man. She's the woman rewriting the game. And everyone is being forced to watch. So now that all the secrets have hit the surface, and the game has officially changed, the real question is, whose side are you on? Are you standing with Jim Jones, trying to piece together the empire he thought was unshakable? Or are you riding with Chrissy Lampkin, the woman who broke free from the shadows and built a legacy of her own? This story isn't just about betrayal or business, it's about control, respect, and finally choosing yourself. And let's be honest, if this is just the beginning, we haven't seen anything yet. The next move could flip everything upside down again. So if you're here for the drama, the truth, and every twist that's still to come, you already know what to do. Smash that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments because we need to know where you stand, and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We're bringing you the realest, rawest, and most unfiltered breakdowns you won't find anywhere else. Turn on those notifications, because with stories like this, every second counts. The fire's only just started, and when the next bombshell drops, you'll want to be the first to know. Stay tuned because this saga is far from over.